there's making a mistake, and then there's self-destruction in 4K broadcast quality in front of the entire sports world. Dillon Gabriel didn't just misstep, he spiraled. He didn't trip over words in an awkward press conference. He launched a targeted, thinly veiled attack on his own teammate, the face of the franchise, and he did it live, publicly, and with a level of bitterness that you usually only see in reality TV confessionals. And now, he's suspended, and not the we'll see next week kind of suspended. This is the don't bother coming back version. The your keycard has been deactivated energy. The writing is on the wall, the hallway lights are flickering, and the door to the NFL is swinging shut behind him with alarming speed.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Because here's the truth. Dillon Gabriel is done. Done in Cleveland. Done as a starting quarterback. And likely, done as anything more than a cautionary tale for every young player walking into a locker room thinking ego gets you ahead. Let's talk about how we got here. Because wow, what a fall. It started with that now infamous press conference. Gabriel had just come off a mediocre preseason performance. Fumble, interception, all-around skittish play. And the conversation, naturally, turned toward Shaduer Sanders. Because while Gabriel was busy tossing ducks and turning the ball over, Sanders was out there playing chess while everyone else was running wind sprints. So what did Gabriel do? He snapped. He couldn't keep it internal. Couldn't keep it in the film room. Instead, he sat down in front of reporters and, with all the passive-aggressive finesse of a kid losing in Madden, dropped the now legendary line. Some guys are more entertainers than competitors. I'm here to win, not to build a brand. The entire room froze. Every reporter's eyebrow shot up. You could practically hear the texts being sent before he even finished the sentence. Everyone knew who he was talking about. He didn't say Shedeur's name, but come on, he didn't have to. This wasn't just poor judgment. It was sabotage. Except Gabriel was the one lighting the fuse at his own feet. Let's be clear. There's always competition in NFL locker rooms. That's normal. That's expected. But there's a difference between healthy competition and undermining the guy everyone in the building already respects. And that's the piece Gabriel never understood. Shaduer Sanders isn't just a quarterback in Cleveland. He's the quarterback. He's the future. He's the franchise. He's the guy who, with one preseason performance, brought clarity to a team that has spent decades stumbling through quarterback purgatory. And Shedeur? He didn't even engage. No subtweets. No passive-aggressive shade. No counterpunch in a follow-up presser. He showed up to practice the next day like nothing happened. Executed every rep. Dapped up teammates. Led by example. While Gabriel stewed, Shedeur led. And that right there? That's the moment this thing shifted from controversy to coronation. But back to Gabriel. The comment alone might have been survivable. Maybe. A private apology. A team meeting, a groveling media cleanup. But Gabriel didn't stop there. Reports began leaking. Anonymous players, staff whispers, bits of locker room tension. That Gabriel had become increasingly difficult. That he'd been openly questioning the coaching staff's decision to give Shedeur more reps. That he'd been cold with teammates. That his body language in meetings was less than professional. Translation? He knew he was losing his spot, and instead of fighting for it the right way, he burned the bridge on his way out. The Browns' front office saw it. The coaches felt it. And by the time the suspension dropped, the reaction inside the facility wasn't shock. It was relief. This wasn't a quarterback battle anymore. It was a personnel cleanup. And let's talk about what the suspension actually means. Officially, it's being described as conduct detrimental to the team. Classic. Vague. Corporate. But make no mistake. This isn't just about words. It's about character. Because when you're the backup and the starter is outworking you, outplaying you, and outclassing you, and your response is to go after him in public, you're not just losing the locker room. You're losing the entire league's respect. Gabriel forgot that NFL teams don't just look at tape. They look at everything. Attitude, coachability, team-first mentality. And every GM watching this unfold now has Gabriel's name permanently red-flagged. This isn't college anymore. You don't get 4 years and a red shirt to figure it out. You get your shot. And when your shot goes sideways, you keep your head down and work harder. Gabriel? He went straight to the mic and torched his credibility instead. Meanwhile, in poetic contrast, Shaduer Sanders has never looked more like a franchise leader. The more chaos Gabriel created, the calmer Shedeur got. He's been unshakable, focused, not just surviving the spotlight, thriving in it. And his teammates? They've taken notice. Receivers are rallying around him. The offensive line trusts him. The defense is talking about how he brings real confidence to the huddle. Even the coaching staff, once tight-lipped about their plans, are now glowing when they talk about his preparation, his presence, his maturity. He didn't win the job with politics. He won it by being the grown-up in the room. Now look at the landscape. The Browns are moving forward, with clarity. The drama is over. The locker room tension? Dissolved. The uncertainty that had been haunting the franchise for years finally lifted. All because one quarterback chose ego, and the other chose leadership. And the fans? Oh, the fans are locked in now. They're done with the drama. They've found their guy. Browns Twitter is already anointing Shedeur QB1 for the next decade. Jerseys are flying off shelves. Season ticket holders who've been burned too many times are finally, cautiously, letting themselves believe again. Because with Shedeur, it's not just about talent. It's about tone. He respects the moment. He understands the weight of the jersey. He's not chasing fame. He's building a legacy. The right way. As for Gabriel, suspended now. Likely released soon. And if we're being real, he's not getting another starting job in the NFL. Maybe a practice squad role. Maybe the XFL if it survives another season. But a starting gig? That door's closed. And he didn't just let it close. He slammed it on himself. Because in a league where the margin between backup and franchise QB is razor thin, character matters. Leadership matters. And when you get caught throwing punches at the one guy everyone else believes in, you're done. So here we are. A team that's known dysfunction for generations suddenly has something rare. Clarity. Gabriel's exit marked the final sweep of the old energy. The bitterness. The finger-pointing. The petty games. And in its place, a locker room centered around a quarterback who leads with quiet confidence, with a chip on his shoulder and a purpose in his eyes. Shaduer Sanders. Not just the future of the Cleveland Browns, but the kind of leader the league is going to have to reckon with. While Dillon Gabriel, he'll be a footnote, a cautionary tale, the guy who let pride bury potential, while Shedeur built a dynasty from humility and heart. And now, the Browns are moving, not crawling, not stumbling, moving, like a team that finally shook off the weight of its own bad decisions. Like a team that just cleared the fog of a quarterback controversy and saw, for the first time in years, a clear path forward. Because once Dillon Gabriel was suspended, the energy in the building changed immediately. Coaches weren't dodging questions anymore. Players weren't side-eyeing each other in film study. Reporters weren't sniffing around for drama in the locker room. And fans? Fans weren't holding their breath waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because it already dropped, with the force of a franchise-defining decision. Let's be real. This wasn't just a disciplinary action. It was a cleansing, a necessary purge of a toxic dynamic that had been festering since day one of training camp. Because when Gabriel made those comments, when he crossed that line, it wasn't just an insult to Shaduer Sanders. It was an insult to everyone who'd bought into the idea that this year could finally be different. That maybe, just maybe, the Cleveland Browns were done being the punchline. Gabriel didn't just question a teammate. He questioned a culture shift. And that's why the team didn't hesitate to shut it down. Because for the first time in a long time, they had something worth protecting: Shaduer Sanders. Now let's talk about what Shedeur actually represents in this moment, because that's what makes Gabriel's fall so striking. Shedeur's not just a rookie quarterback with hype. He's not just a famous last name. He is the symbol of what Cleveland football hasn't had in over 2 decades. A quarterback you can believe in. Not a placeholder. Not a project. Not a maybe. But a dude. Someone with presence. Swagger that doesn't alienate. Calm under pressure. Charisma without chaos. Shedeur walks into a room and people straighten up. Not because he demands it, but because he carries something that doesn't need to be said out loud. And it's that unspoken it that Dillon Gabriel never had, and never understood. Because Gabriel tried to fake it. He tried to throw words like daggers, hoping they'd land and maybe tip the scales in his favor. But leadership doesn't come from throwing shade. It comes from showing up when it matters. It comes from owning your moments, not tearing down someone else's. And that's the thing. Gabriel was never going to win this battle. Not because of talent. Not because of fan votes. But because he mistook envy for edge. And the NFL eats that alive. While Gabriel spiraled, Shedeur focused. You'd think after being publicly disrespected by a teammate on live TV, he might have a moment. A snarky post. A subtle quote. Something. Nope. He showed up to practice early the next day. Stayed late. Took extra reps with receivers. Talked to the media like a professional. And you know what he said? "I'm here to do my job. That's all I'm focused on." That right there? That's a franchise quarterback answer. It's not just about throwing touchdowns. It's about taking hits, emotional ones too, and not flinching. While Gabriel tried to turn the Browns into a reality show, Shedeur was turning them into a football team again. And let's not forget how incredible that preseason performance was. Everyone expected a decent outing. Get in, make some basic throws, don't mess it up. But what Shedeur did, he took over. He commanded the offense. From the moment he stepped on the field, it felt different. The rhythm was there. The confidence. He wasn't playing like a rookie. He was orchestrating like a leader. That deep ball down the seam between 2 defenders? That was timing, trust, and pure arm talent. The 2-minute drill before the half? Smooth as silk. Like he'd done it 1,000 times. Like he didn't feel the weight of a fan base desperate for anything to believe in. And here's the part no one talks about enough. The guys rallied around him. Not just the offense. The entire team. Defensive linemen cheering from the sideline. Coaches patting him on the helmet. Backup running backs coming up to fist bump him between series. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens when a quarterback walks into the building and says, "I'm not here to be famous. I'm here to win." Even though, ironically, he's already both. And now the Browns, for the first time in what feels like forever, have clarity. No more second-guessing. No more open competition. No more pretending this is about anything other than Shaduer Sanders being the present and future of this franchise. And you can feel the organization quietly locking in. Players are talking about accountability. Coaches are using words like trust and momentum. The fan base is buzzing. There's a mood in Cleveland that hasn't existed since maybe the LeBron era. This belief that something real is happening. Something sustainable. Something different. And at the center of it, A 21-year-old quarterback who just proved that class and leadership can do what shouting and clout chasing never will: earn the room. So where does that leave Dillon Gabriel? Suspended, likely released, and already fading into the background. He'll go down as the quarterback who couldn't win with his arm, so he tried to win with his mouth, and lost both. A lesson, plain and simple. In the NFL, character is currency. If you don't have it, your time is borrowed. And when you attack the guy who does have it, you're cashing out early. Shaduer Sanders didn't need to fight for the spotlight. He didn't need to clap back or gloat. He just needed to be himself. Professional, focused, steady. And in the aftermath of controversy, what's left standing isn't the loudest voice in the room. It's the one who didn't say a word, but kept winning. That's Shaduer Sanders. That's your QB1. And that's the future of Cleveland. And now that the dust has settled, what's left? A Browns team that has, against all odds, found its voice. A locker room that, for once, isn't divided between potential and experience or legacy and loyalty, but united under one truth: Shaduer Sanders is the man now. And the irony? He never asked for that crown. He didn't come into the building barking about being QB1. He didn't demand the spotlight, even though it's followed him since high school. He didn't leverage his last name, his social media presence, or his connections. He just worked, quietly, consistently, confidently. And then he earned it. Contrast that with Dillon Gabriel, who couldn't handle not being the story, who saw the attention shifting, felt the control slipping, and made the most fatal move a player can make in any NFL locker room. He let envy speak for him. When Gabriel went live and shaded Shedeur with that entertainer versus competitor jab, he wasn't just crossing a line. He was exposing himself. Because make no mistake, nobody in that building misunderstood who he meant. Not the players, not the coaches, not the PR staff. Everyone knew he was talking about Sanders. And what made it worse? Shedeur had done nothing to deserve it. He didn't gloat. He didn't play dirty. He wasn't leaking stories to the media or trying to build a narrative. He was just better. And that, apparently, was too much for Gabriel to handle. And this is where the NFL has a memory like an elephant on steroids. Because you can fumble. You can lose a game. You can even have a few shaky outings. What you can't do is take a personal shot at the leader of the team and then expect the room to still have your back. Not in the NFL. Not when your own stat sheet is built on sand. So when Gabriel got suspended, no tears were shed. Not even internally. He was already gone. The locker room had moved on without him before the ink dried on the suspension notice. And that's the moment you knew this was more than a punishment. It was a purge. Now here's the deeper story. What this says about the evolution of the Browns themselves. For years, decades, this team has been a magnet for chaos. Quarterback controversies, coaching turnstiles, locker room drama, draft busts, media wars, all of it. You name the dysfunction. Cleveland has worn it like a badge of dishonor. But this is a turning point. Because for once, the Browns didn't enable the drama. They ended it. They didn't let a quarterback stir the pot to protect his spot. They didn't bury it under vague PR speak or no-comment statements. They acted, and more importantly, they acted in favor of character. They chose the guy who shut up, suited up, and showed out. The guy who handled public disrespect with private focus. The guy who took every off-field distraction and turned it into on-field execution. And that is something new for Cleveland. That is growth. That is leadership. That is culture shift in real time. Now, let's zoom out for a moment. Let's talk about what this means for the league at large. Because players and coaches across the NFL are watching this unfold. They're watching how a young QB with a famous last name didn't collapse under pressure, but thrived under it. They're watching how a team responded. Not to noise, not to status, but to leadership. And they're watching how quickly another QB's career unraveled when he put his ego before the team. Front offices are taking notes. Agents are whispering lessons to clients. Rookies are seeing in real time the difference between being a name and being the guy. And Shedeur? He just taught a masterclass without saying a single word. He taught them that you don't have to yell to be heard. You just have to deliver. And now, Shaduer Sanders isn't just the Browns' future. He's becoming something bigger. He's the guy everyone wants to believe in. The media loves him because he gives great quotes without ever going too far. Sponsors love him because he's a walking brand built on discipline. Coaches love him because he's teachable and confident. Teammates love him because he never makes it about himself, but he still shows up like it's all on his shoulders. And fans? They worship him already. Browns Nation hasn't had this kind of energy in years. Decades even. For once, people aren't just hoping for a winning season. They're expecting it. They're buying into the idea that with Shedeur under center, anything is possible. Because he's not just playing football. He's changing the franchise. Meanwhile, the ghost of Dillon Gabriel lingers. Not out of relevance, but as a reminder of what happens when you confuse jealousy for drive. When you try to compete by cutting down the one who's already outpacing you. There's a lesson in his fall. A loud one. Because you can have talent, grit, even a few moments of greatness. But if you lack the humility to grow, the maturity to lead, and the grace to lose, you will always be your own worst enemy. And Gabriel was. He didn't get cut because of Shedeur. He got cut because of himself. So now the Browns are walking into a new era. No more whispers. No more QB debates. No more locker room factions. Just a team, Shadeur's team, ready to follow the guy who led without ever needing to shout. And if you're watching this unfold from afar, just know one thing. This isn't a feel-good rookie story. This isn't a blip on the radar. This isn't a viral preseason moment that fades when the real games start. This is the beginning of something real. A quarterback with the tools, the poise, the character. A team finally ready to rally behind someone who earns respect, not demands it. And a fan base that has, at long last, found the leader they've been waiting for. Shaduer Sanders didn't just win the job. He became the standard. And Dillon Gabriel? He'll be watching the season from a couch, wondering what could have been if he'd just chosen silence, humility, and work. Because in the NFL, the spotlight's a privilege. And Shedeur? He just made it his.